In transitions, there's winners and losers, and it's the same type of people who keep losing. We can't let that happen on our watch. How does climate change affect women? How does it affect people of colour? How does it affect youth? Women make up 70% of the workforce. It's still quite a privileged conversation for a lot of communities, leaving no one behind. Or the age of the internet emerged, women were not at the forefront of it.
You're not in the business of aid, you're in the business of empowerment.
We are artists that use innovation and investment as our paintbrush to address market failures, both in developing and developed economies. So to get to where we are, it can only be for us the grace of God. It's also about talking power into your situation.
I'm not going to go all woo-woo on your ass.
Everybody is born with natural talents, but effort requires you to work on something. Luck is just when opportunity and preparation meets. Nepotism is real everywhere.
Yeah.
It just lucks out for more people in different ways.
Welcome to another episode of Strategy and Tragedy, the show that spotlights the highs, the lows, the strategies and tragedies of business, hosted by yours truly, Stephanie Melodia. I created this show to spotlight some of the most inspirational, resilient entrepreneurs and to provide them with a platform for their raw and honest stories to help you in your own founder journey. If you're curious to hear more, then I recommend you queue up episode 0 to listen to straight after this. Episodes drop every Wednesday at 6 a.m. UK time, so hit that subscribe button to get your regular dose of startup education and inspiration. All right, let's dive into today's show. Mandy Nyarko MBE is the Cambridge-educated co-founder of Startup Discovery School, managing partner of Sahara Impact Ventures, as well as holding positions including chairwoman, angel investor, board member. Mandy, welcome to the show.
Hello.
Okay, so I'm sure you get asked the same question that I often get asked these days. How do you do it all to begin with?
I think I'm just crazy, honestly.
It's just crazy.
It's just crazy.
We're all a little bit crazy.
Luckily for me, I'd say like most of the work is pretty much so intersectional. So Startup Discovery School, people love to ask us, what exactly do you guys do? We design and deliver innovation programs. So this is your incubators, your hackathons, your accelerators, open innovation and challenge response programs with both public and private sector organizations.
And just on that, can you give us a few examples of some of your clients at Startup Discovery School?
Yeah, absolutely. So Lambeth Council is one of our clients, Islington Council. We've worked in the past with HSBC and Samson. The UK Shared Prosperity Fund, so the Greater London Authority is one of our clients at the moment as well. So a good mix of both private and public sector. But essentially what we're doing is working with them on how they tackle their net zero goals. So as you know, everyone is currently looking at how they can address climate change within their organization. How can they reduce, remove, avoid greenhouse gas emissions? And it's tough. It's very difficult when, you've got a big business, people traveling. The way in which we've operated for all of these years has been in a particular type of way. So how do we retrofit that? How do we redesign everything that we've known for the last however many years?
Just on that as well. Sorry, I'm just super curious about this because obviously climate change, obviously top of the agenda. Would you say what you've just covered there in terms of people being used to traveling, the MO, the status quo, would you say that that's one of the biggest challenges in solving climate change, or
yes,
what else would you put at the top of that list?
I think communication. So I think climate communication is pretty weak across the board. If you look at the way in which the conversation is carried out globally, it's still quite a privileged conversation for a lot of communities. There are some people, particularly from, let's say, underrepresented backgrounds or underserved communities, more working class, that this is not a priority. This is not their day-to-day fires that they're putting out. Believe it or not, the earth is not what they're worried about. It's other things pertaining social sustainability. And so I would say communication is one of the issues, because those who are talking about climate change are not really positioning it in a way for everyone to take up space in it, to understand what it means for them. And it means something for every single person on the planet. And so part of the work that we do, or the main work that we do, is working with these organizations to make sure that we are tackling what we call a just transition to a net zero economy. And by just, we mean leaving no one behind. And truly leaving no one behind. So how does climate change affect women? How does it affect people of color? How does it affect youth? How does it affect those who might identify as having a disability? How do we make sure that the most underrepresented people in society actually see the opportunities and are put at the forefront of opportunities as opposed to being left behind? My co-founder says it perfectly. He always says there's been many transitions and there's always winners and losers during transition. So in a tech boom, I mean, 30 plus years later, we're all still sitting here talking about why there needs to be more women in tech. Why is that? When technology emerged, or the age of the internet emerged, women were not at the forefront of it, right? So we need to make sure that the green economy or the transition to a green economy doesn't do that. And that's what we're in the business to do. And that means it happens in many different ways. I like to say that we are artists that use innovation and investment as our paintbrush to address market failures, both in developing and developed economies. And that's exactly what we do. We build these programs, and that's the innovation arm, but we're also building our investment arms so we can actually invest to scale up the solutions that will tackle this and create the impact.
So just on that note, can you give us some like real world practical examples of how climate change might affect these other individuals on the ground, so to speak, the every person out there on the street?
So if you look at the global south, so if we take, let's say, Africa, for example, and we take agriculture as a sector, there's a big nexus between climate change and women or gender when it comes to agriculture. Women make up 70% of the workforce in Africa when it comes to agriculture. They are on the front line. They make up 80% of the continent's food. So when there are excessive droughts and floods, they are the ones that feel it the most. Right. That's a live example. Agriculture is the leading, the leading kind of source of income for the global majority in Africa. And so, but the smallholder farmers are the ones that are paid the worst in the whole value chain. And so how do we make sure that we're leveling the playing field for women, particularly, that we're looking at their challenges that they're facing every day? Cooking is another one to put out there. So clean cooking, or the way in which women create food at the moment in Africa, is usually through charcoal. And that comes with a lot of health issues as well. Women and youth, you tend to find women with their children making food. You tend to find them doing a lot of that in the evenings as well, of which, Africa, is prone to many different health issues and diseases, malaria being one of them. Mosquitoes at night tend to bite you when you're in the evening, etc. So if you're outside and you're doing that kind of work, you're more prone to have malaria and, what have you. So again, women are the ones that are disproportionately being affected by this. And so going back to the agricultural piece, one of the biggest challenges as well with that is, even though the women are on the front line, etc., they're not actually the landowners. So again, if you do have an excessive drought or excessive flooding, whilst you're the one farming and responsible for the crop production, etc., you can't go to a bank or some sort of insurance company to try and recoup some sort of capital to finance that loss. And so again, women are disproportionately affected. So those are two practical examples.
Thank you for sharing
how that
those.
happens.
Yeah, it means that you only feel the pain, don't you, when things go badly,
exactly.
And you don't get any of the upside when things are going well.
No, absolutely not.
Classic. Thanks for that. Okay. Great. All right. A testament to your passion and your very genuine, mission around sustainability, net zero. We very quickly deep dove into that.
Yeah.
We didn't even get to cover your intro background
eat,
or anything.
Breathe and sleep.
You can tell. I love it. I will definitely talk about it a bit more because I'm fascinated and want to hear more about your fantastic work and what we can all do to play our part as well. The investment thesis there, what are you going to be?
So Gender Lens Climate Technology Fund. So it invests at the nexus of climate change and gender. And by gender, I mean, of course, we would love for the majority, if not all of our portfolio to be led by women or co-founded by women.
Amazing. Love that.
But the reality...
Fuck yeah.
The reality of that is, one thing I'm really, really passionate about is assessing ecosystems for entrepreneurship. And one thing I will say is the UK have done an amazing job to build a very strong and coherent ecosystem when it comes to trying to start a business. I know people still struggle with, where do I go if I want to access this? Where do I go if I want to find this? But if you compare it to other economies and other countries and in different geographies, we are so far ahead.
Yeah, that gets me
so
down as
far
well
ahead.
though, actually, because it's like, fuck, this is supposed to be like the best.
The best.
Right. This is like the best. It's like we're actually leading the way compared to all these other countries.
Do you know what? I think if you haven't had much insight into how other geographies are dealing with it, then you may not appreciate what we have here in the UK. But it is they're doing a stellar job when it comes to that. I can't lie. Listen, compared to my African counterparts, massive props.
I know what you're talking about. I just feel so angry about it that it makes it hard to appreciate. I get what you're saying. I do get it. Like comparatively, like the compare and contrast, for sure. Like I totally see the difference. But like, it's just still not good enough for me, basically.
I think everyone's in their journey in different places, right? So in Africa, I would say it's just getting the fundamentals in place. If you're trying to understand businesses to be created, try and understand, let's say, different sectors. Let's say climate change or climate technology. Understand a climate tech founder has probably 2 Death Valley curves in Africa. Not even just in Africa. I just think that we've plugged the gap better in the UK, but from when they have an idea to go from an idea to a minimum viable product, because they tend to have hardware attached to them, they're going to need some patient capital for maybe up to 3 years, maybe even 3 to 5 years. Luckily, we have the great Innovate UK that plugs that gap here. Many people don't have an Innovate UK.
Yeah.
You know, and so what does that mean? If they don't plug that gap through their own savings or some sort of DFI capital, and that requires them to be well astute in terms of how to navigate that kind of funding landscape, then their ideas will never see the light of day.
Yeah, it's totally true. It's totally true. There's far less options.
Exactly.
It's funny because your old friend, Andy Nyarko, who's also been on the show and such a sweetheart. Oh my God, I love him. He's just like a human teddy bear.
We all love Andy.
It's like impossible not to. Plugging that other episode, I can't remember the number, but go and check that one out. It's Andy Nyarko. Go and search for that episode because that's a great episode as well. I love chatting to him. But such a small world because you two actually go way back. You grew up, what age did you meet each other at first?
Probably maybe 4.
Wow. Do you know what? I had 4 in my mind.
Yeah, maybe 4. Yeah, probably 4. I mean, Andy and I even share a god sister.
Wow.
So,
what a small world.
Yeah.
So the segue, I definitely want to deep dive a bit more into that as well. But the segue here is he actually made the same points on the show as well around, because his perspective was more actually his time in Silicon Valley. And we were just talking about, again, comparing and contrasting like different places in the world. And he was really bigging up, all these sorts of initiatives like Innovate UK, SEIS.
Trust me.
All of these programs, funding options, grants, all these resources. I was like, okay, fine. All right. Calm me down a little bit. Connecting the dots there. So what a coincidence.
Yes, I know. We both said it. It's ridiculous. Right? Mandy, Andy. And I don't think many people know this, but Andy and I share a birthday as well.
What?
Yes.
Okay, this is weird. What's your birthday?
9th of May.
Both of your birthdays?
Yes, both of our birthdays on the 9th of May.
Both Taurus babies.
Yeah.
So,
where do I go from here?
What? That is so wild. That is, what a coincidence.
Yes.
So you also the same year? So
no,
you at school?
I'm 1 year above.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yes.
So, but you both, the thing that I want to get to here, even though I'm like...
We both ended up in the same kind of industry.
Well, not only that. I mean, you're both from Tottenham. You both are ethnic minorities.
Yes, we're both Ghanaian.
I didn't even realise that. You're both Ghanaian. And you're both now in the same industry.
Yes.
You're both, by any measure, doing very well for yourselves.
Thank
individually, like super impressive. You, of course, I mentioned in your intro, went to Cambridge. You've both got MBEs as well, which we need to talk about. What's going on here?
Thank God. Thank you, Lord.
Well, he talked about that as well. He talked about spirituality and religion, which was really interesting.
Yeah, I think definitely, like for us, God plays a huge role in our success. Where we come from, not many people get to be exposed to the things that we've been exposed to. There's lots of layers to us. I like to say that, I liken us to being an onion. There's many different layers, from being diaspora and growing up with your Ghanaian heritage, but growing up very Christian, growing up with your Christian values, and then also being very much so British.
Right.
And growing up with your British values as well. Yeah. Being a woman, there's so much here.
Yeah. So
to get to where we are, it can only be for us the grace of God, And that builds a lot of resilience. There's so many learnings within Christianity that builds you as a human being to be who you are today. Absolutely.
Can you share one or two of those with us? I'd love to hear.
Oh, God. Okay. Where do I go from here? You're turning me into a pastor on the spot.
I love it. We all need a bit of that.
One of the things I love to quote is, out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. So I'm very careful of what comes out of my mouth. Very careful about what comes out of the mouth. There's power in the tongue. And so power in the tongue's a really strong one. Most Christians will resonate with that. And that's not just, I don't know, let's say talking about something that's meaningless. It's also about talking power into your situation and calling things that aren't as though they are, because that's the faith bit, being activated, right? And sometimes people, if you read like, I think it's Steve Jobs, like, he has a quote about sometimes it's the craziest people that are the ones that are going to go and do. But to be an entrepreneur, you've got to have a bit of crazy in you. And I think to be a Christian, you've got to have a bit of crazy in you as well, because you need to activate that faith, which is the things that you don't see. And you need to call on those things as if they existed, so you can almost manifest it, right? So there's a lot of manifestation that takes place in scripture that I think, when you yield to it, it helps you to literally step into your calling and step into that vision that you want to bring to life. So, you can come to church on Sunday. And
I would love that. I would love that. Can I join the choir as well? Because I would definitely, I save me a spot on the choir for sure.
We can have a Bible study, don't worry.
I love that. And, the topic of spirituality, religion is so interesting. And on the outside, it might seem a bit disconnected from the world of tech, entrepreneurship. We're here to talk about business, and I love how quickly we got into like your mission and sustainability and everything else as well. But from my read of this, I'm sure there's many other listeners out there who are of many different faiths and religious, or perhaps none at all, which is myself. I'm atheist, but I am so curious. I'm so open-minded. I love listening to these stories, and what I take away from what you were just saying there is in particular the whole manifestation piece. And I know, listeners, stay with us for a second. Don't skip just yet. I'm not going to go all woo-woo on your ass. I believe in the power of the brain. And there's so many different shades of the same color. And I think this is really, without going too deep as well, I really think this is what's missing in the age of social media today. The age of social media has driven the instant gratification, the instant categorizing, the cancel culture. It's black and white. We don't have those shades of gray. For me, I love listening. I accept what you're saying completely. But there's different interpretations of ultimately the same thing at its core, at its essence. That's why there are so many religions and stories and beliefs and values. It's whatever resonates with you, and it's really whatever works for you. So it's interesting we come on to that point around spirituality, because one of the questions I was going to ask you was, I've had my head deep in some research around talent, effort, and luck. I've been doing this research for a keynote that I'm preparing. And an interesting study has shown that out of those three, I'll ask you first, see if you can guess. It links to what we're talking about here, spirituality and faith and everything. Talent, effort, luck. Which out of those three, especially somebody like you who's come so far and accomplished so much, which of those three do you think contribute most to a person's success? And luck, we can categorize that
as anything. I think it's effort.
Okay.
And should I tell you why I think effort?
Sure.
I think everybody is born with natural talents, but effort requires you to work on something, work on yourself, work on your mindset, work on a craft. It also means that it's an opportunity for you to develop the attitude to attain the thing that you're going after. And a lot of the time, people can have great talents, but they don't achieve the things that they want because they don't have the right attitude. And that is demonstrated through your efforts, right? That's why we talk about having a can-do attitude, etc., proactivity, and what have you. So I think it's effort. There's a saying that says that luck is just when opportunity and preparation meets. So luck is, for me, when you've prepared and then the people might say the stars aligned or whatever you want to call it, then you get your luck, right? But the majority of the time, it's effort that's going to push you through to the finish line, in my opinion.
Yeah. So that's exactly the connection with the previous point around the spirituality, the faith, activating the faith, to use your words on that as well. You've got to be open to those opportunities.
You've got to be ready.
And your mind's got to be able to kind of pick up on.
It's like going for, like, if you don't even want to put a spiritual lens on it, right? Or a faith-based lens on it. It's like going for an interview and you're already depleted walking in saying, I don't think this is mine.
Yeah.
Right? You got to go in there and take that.
Yeah.
Right?
Like, I've got the job. It's mine.
Like, it's mine. Like, you know, like, I mean, what are they even doing? Like, doing this round of interviews. Like, you know, you got to go in big. You got to go in thinking that this is yours. And so if you don't, then how can you really say you're ready for that blessing?
Yeah, exactly. Quick one. I need to tell you a bit about Patreon. If you haven't heard of it before, Patreon is the creator platform that enables people like you to support podcasters like me. I actually studied art history for all of 5 minutes, which is where the whole idea of patronage, aka financially supporting artists, comes from. Kings and queens would commission artists to create paintings to adorn their castle walls. Upper class lords and ladies celebrated their accomplishments by using their wealth to support the arts. And during the Italian Renaissance, my favourite era, the Medicis actually developed a close bond with Michelangelo, who painted the Sistine Chapel, and the Sforza family supported Da Vinci, who helped name Leonardo DiCaprio. That is a true story, by the way. Anyway, I know that you're not here for a history lesson thrown in to your business studies class, but if you're feeling like a rich Renaissance royal who wants to support your very own little Botticelli here, then Patreon is the solution for you. Simply tap the link in the show notes to select your tier of patronage to support the show. It starts from a low amount and it really means a lot to help me to continue producing these interviews that I hope you enjoy. Thank you so much for listening. Let's get back into the episode. So I will give you the point on that one. So the actual answer is luck is only kind of a % or two more of the contributing factor to success. But where they go so hand in hand is pretty much to your point there, which is you've got to be open to those opportunities.
Let me challenge that for a second.
Yeah, for sure. Go for it. Love it.
I can see why someone might choose luck, but I also feel if you don't put yourself in a position to attract luck, how do you get to luck? It is very, very, very unheard of for someone who doesn't work to just land a job in Google just like that without even applying. How? What are the odds that happens? Versus someone who maybe goes to networking events, has picked a mentor, got a sponsor, and then all of a sudden a job opens up and they luckily get it.
Yeah, exactly.
That required effort though.
Exactly, yeah. So it's not, you're totally right. You're totally right. I love it. And it's completely unsurprising that you say effort as well, because again, besides how much you have accomplished as an individual, as humans at our core, we need to feel that we're in control. And so we don't like to feel that there's these other forces, external forces outside of as much as faith and spirituality, you know, we can put us on that path, but we still want to feel like we are the, you know, masters of our own destiny to a certain degree. Just to clarify, so the element of luck that comes into the equation is essentially kind of anything that is out of our control. And it goes deeper in terms of things like where we were born, what colour skin, what gender, etc., what kind of family. That's really kind of the only reason why it's got that extra sort of couple of %, because there's a few things that can work for or against you, essentially. So with all of this really deep into it, I'd be like biting my tongue here because I could just talk about this with you for like hours. But connecting it back to what you were just saying, and again, coming back onto your path to success. So yeah, exactly. How did you, this young girl, Ghanaian background from Tottenham, first of all, go to Cambridge, and then get into this male-dominated world of tech, entrepreneurship, investing? What opened the doors for you at each of those stages, or what did you do to push those doors open?
So just to clarify, Cambridge came later in life, right? So I actually went to Cambridge School of Sustainable Leadership, or Sustainability Leadership, and that was to learn sustainable finance and business sustainability management. Before that, I went to Kingston University, and even though I grew up in a very Ghanaian home and education is very, very, like, it's like everything, I didn't quite take education seriously. I think it's just my natural way of learning. I'm more of a doer as opposed to sitting down and reading and for hours and hours. And I didn't quite see at the time what it was that I was studying that spoke to my heart or pulled on my heart purse strings or whatever. Later on in life, I realized that actually the course I did at Kingston University was sociology and business. And with sociology, it's all around the way people are, not from a psychological perspective, but just how people are in society, right? And how societies are formed and what have you. And then business is business. And entrepreneurship is a really good blend of both. But I didn't know that this world even existed until I basically, my route in was banking. So I worked for the Abbey National brand, and then that got bought by Santander. And then I moved across to the RBS group. So I was a bank manager, like 23, managed a number of branches across the UK. And then from there, a great thing about that group is they had multiple different brands. So you have the Coutts brand, you have NatWest, and I jumped over to NatWest, and I did a number of various roles, from area manager to a customer experience coach, which was my last role. I had a great opportunity to go into an area that I'd always wanted to. So I always say I didn't realize this until later, but I've had some great role models throughout my life who are in entrepreneurship. My first role model is my godmother. Wow. That was my first exposure into entrepreneurship, but didn't quite take that in at the time.
Yeah.
I worked with about 135 entrepreneurs.
Wow. So that must have been a bit of like baptism of fire for you, going from the bank, the more corporate world, and then like boom, like all of these entrepreneurs to mentor, like a load of data points to gather in a short space of time.
Huge data points.
Right?
It was sector agnostic. So I like to say that I feel like I've worked with every kind of business you can think of now.
Same. Yeah, that resonates.
Like if you bring me someone selling fish oil versus someone who's got a recruitment company, someone, like building renewable energy batteries, I've probably seen it.
And isn't it fascinating at the core, the prerequisites for success, regardless of
the industry,
yes. Of sector, there's the same commonalities,
exactly.
There's the same sort of golden rules to
just
follow.
Nuances, in things like regulation or technology or go-to-market strategy,
which you
customer
can learn,
acquisition. You
which
can
you
learn
can go
that.
and find out.
Exactly. Yeah. But the core fundamentals are pretty much the same, especially when it comes to launching and getting to product market fit.
Yeah.
So, I did that, and I was like, I'm never going back to the bank again. This is my calling. This is what I'm meant to do. So I lived in Brighton for a couple of years and then moved back to London to lead a hardware accelerator. And that's where I fell in love with sustainability, because most of the entrepreneurs in that program or that co-working space were building things that were tackling climate change. Yeah. And that's when I also had an opportunity to learn a bit more about how climate change is affecting people in the global south, particularly Africa. Being Ghanaian, I knew I'd one day do something in that space. And then I moved to Exeter. They are a very forward-thinking city when it comes to tackling climate change. And so I went to lead as the managing director their innovation program, which was all around, again, working with different entrepreneurs to tackle their congestion within the city, so transportation, and transitioning them to renewable energy sources as well. So that was very exciting. Whilst I was doing that, I started working with Ada as a scout. And
what was your connection there? Did you know any of them first, or
Andy connected me to Czech?
Oh, it's through Andy.
Yes.
Yeah, cool. Andy makes another appearance in the story.
Andy is pivotal to a lot of stuff. Andy's the one that gave me the name for Startup Discovery School.
Ah,
yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there's lots of crossovers and links back. Yeah. But before that, I forgot to mention, when I left the NatWest Acceleration, which is now, they acquired that company, and then now the NatWest Accelerator. Okay. But when I left there and went to do the hardware, I was also working with an angel investor, so super angel, deposits about 150K on average in each deal. So I helped him to deploy in, I think, almost 15 deals.
Wow.
Yeah.
So how did you go about that? How did you go about deciding deals without the experience?
You have experience to assess deals, right? To know what deals are credible, able to go somewhere, etc. What you don't have is more kind of fund economic or returns experience per se. But at an angel stage, I would say that's not that It's important, but
not
your
as
back
much
is not as much, right?
with
Like a
VCs,
pre-seed deal, angel deal, you're backing the jockey.
founder.
Yeah, you're
the
backing
jockey.
the jockey, right? Not the horse. You're backing the jockey, and you're looking at what are the levers that are demonstrating success here, and yeah, can I see those? Can I see that in this person? I think over time I've got to learn some different levers that perhaps maybe people can't overtly say that impact someone's journey, such as intersectionality. I'll be frank with you and be candid. You can have a great founder, but if they come from a certain background, you need to understand that you're going to need to support that founder a lot more in their future fundraisers. Whereas typically most investors would want to know that founder can do that themselves. And so if there's an opportunity to back someone who can't do it, they'd rather pick the person who can do it. So your race, your gender, your social class will be a factor in potentially receiving investment, not because you've not done a great job right now, but can you take it all the way? Or can you even get it to a point where they can see a little return? That is something that I have seen.
So are you saying that sort of puts more responsibility on those early backers?
Yes.
To help prop them 100%. Up for that future success?
Yeah, 100%. We ran, so Startup Discovery School, like I said, we run many different programs. Yesterday we launched a Women in Impact program.
Amazing.
Congrats. And thank you. And one of the entrepreneurs asked, where can I find these angel communities? There are some people who don't ask those questions because the angel communities on their doorstep, right? They're their friends, parents, their own family members. They know they can get that first round. Yeah. Right. So these are things that we need to consider and just be honest about.
Yeah. So, and I just have to, just on that, I'm really glad that that's come up in conversation a number of times throughout this podcast. I just have to say, that's also part of the mission. There's loads of different sort of missions with, the purpose of the show and the stories. It's not lost on me the fact that there are so many of these one-on-one interview format shows. So obviously it plays on my mind, how's my own show going to stand out? What am I offering? Why are people going to choose to tune into this? And so much of it is, strategy and tragedy is like a funny kind of, it rhymes and everything, but it really is those realities of what entrepreneurs have to go through, and entrepreneurs that do come in all shapes and sizes. So exactly to your point there, it has come up a few times now about some people do just have a well-off, auntie or neighbor or friend, when we talk even just the term friends and family round. Yes. To be honest with you, that I hate it. I hate that term. But it's real. I hate the term friends and family round. I can't stand that. Is pure privilege. It's dripping in upper class white privilege. Friends and family round. I ask a friend for a $5.
Yeah. You know what the thing is though, you can't knock someone for being born into privilege.
Well, this goes all the way back.
Do you know what I mean?
To that whole talent, effort, luck thing as well, right?
Exactly. Yeah. You can't knock someone for being into, you can amplify. It's
not their fault either.
Of course.
Right.
And not being funny, if you had that, you'd take it.
Yeah.
There's no one who wouldn't if you're trying to start a business that needs money. Absolutely, you will tap into that. Nepotism is real everywhere. Yeah. Right? It just lucks out for more people in different ways, right?
Totally true.
So
sorry,
we've totally gone. No, but going back to your earlier point, that's how I got into angel investing. I got into angel investing working for a super angel who their background was a finance director. So I learned a lot. Whilst I was sourcing deals, assessing, I also learned a lot on the job as well.
That's super interesting.
Yeah. And then from Exeter, went on maternity leave and started Startup Discovery School just after the George Floyd issue, just to provide more access. I knew I could run accelerators and incubators, deliver them myself, design them in my sleep. I knew there were people from communities that I've come from that don't even know these things exist. So that was my kind of give back.
Yeah, I love that.
But the second iteration of it, of okay, I think I'm ready now to take that jump, because even me, myself, even though I'd been doing this for many organizations now, I don't believe I had the true self-belief at the time that I could do it for myself. And so collaborated with Gosbert, who I'd worked with previously in Exeter, and was we could do this thing, but really pick up the lens from our previous work and look at where we think the injustices currently lie. Now, when we ran cohorts in Exeter, they had some of the best businesses tackling the best problems, but the majority of them did not reflect diverse communities. There was barely any women in the cohorts. There was barely any people of color.
Yeah.
But we were probably the most diverse climate tech cohorts there was at the time in the UK, because we who were running it were from diverse backgrounds. So we saw the need. We saw the danger of, again, like I said, in transitions there's winners and losers, and it's the same type of people who keep losing. And we saw that happening. We know the green economy is going to be big. And we said we can't let that happen on our watch. We need to make sure that we make that change and we raise the awareness of why women need to see a pathway for entrepreneurship. You know, people of color need to see themselves in this space as well. A lot of them are working in the field, but just not transitioning to create solutions in it. So, that's where SDS 2.0 started, where I, in the intro, I told you what we do. And that's kind of where we are.
Mandy, oh my goodness.
There's a lot to discuss.
Kudos to you. I know, I'm so spoilt for choice as well. I wish we had hours and hours as always. Well, huge congratulations on everything that you're doing, on being so genuinely mission driven. It totally comes through in your words and your actions. A couple more quick questions. I am conscious of time, but earlier on you did mention about kind of using, I'm going to butcher it what you just said now, but using innovation as a paintbrush, almost like an artist. I read that in your LinkedIn bio, and I also read another really powerful line that I would love for you to expand on before we start wrapping up.
If I remember it.
No, honestly, I was like, damn. Do you know what? Genuinely, I'll tell you what the line was in just a sec. But I promise you, swear down, I was at an event by Sharmadine Reed yesterday, actually. And I was telling some other people, I was like, I read this one line and obviously credited you. You're not in the business of aid. You're in the business of empowerment. I thought that was so powerful, obviously. Can you just expand on that one-liner? Because I just thought that was brilliant.
I think over the years, even though I grew up very working class, I am a beneficiary of aid, state aid. It didn't enable me to become who I am today. And actually, the majority of people where I come from that are beneficiaries of that, I think it disenables you. It disenables you to unlock your potential because you're being given things for free. It's almost like a soother, but that's not helping the situation. I'm not saying you must struggle, but you should empower people. You should give people the tools to unlock their potential, not give them a soother to suppress them. Just slap this bandage on this current situation right now. Let's give you this capital. You can pay your rent, etc. No, give them an opportunity to become wealth creators. Give them an opportunity to do more than pay their bills, but to make investments. Give them an opportunity to build their capacity. That's what I'm in the business of doing. I'm not in the business of giving people soothers, because I think everybody has the right to see themselves in the best version of themselves. And everyone has the potential internally to unlock their own success if you give them the right opportunities and the right resources to do so. So that's what we're in the business of doing.
Mandy, if this was the time of the month, you'd be making me cry right now. That was so beautiful.
Yeah,
it's the whole teach a man to fish thing, right?
Yeah. 100%.
You word it so beautifully and so powerfully. It was really impactful to just read that written, and to hear you talk about it it's just so beautiful. I love it. All right, sadly, final question, my traditional closing question on this show. Often the biggest mistakes or tragedies, so to speak, can teach us the most unforgettable lessons. What has been one tragedy, air quotes, that's taught you something that you'll never forget?
Yeah, I think for me, it's pick up the learns. So whenever there's a tragedy, there are learns. Sometimes we go through those things again because we didn't learn from the experience. So pick up the learns, document it. Then give yourself grace and start again. See yourself like a palm tree. Palm trees can bend, I believe, 40 to 50 degrees without snapping. You're going to go through the ringer. This is advice for life, but it's also advice as well in business. It takes twists and turns. Sometimes you'll go through certain experiences and you feel like you've been punched in the stomach. Feel that winding, go through the motions, recoup, and go again. You only lose if you stop. But on the journey, because it's very long, like you going back to your point, there's cancel culture now. There's a lot of like quick wins. Life doesn't work like that. There's no lift to success. It is the stairs. Take a breather on the staircase and go again.
Mandy, you are brilliant. I love that.
Thank you.
What a perfect note to end this episode on. Mic drop right there. Don't drop the mic. Mandy, that was amazing. Thank you so much for coming on the show. I wish we had much more time, genuinely, but hopefully we can continue the conversation. Comment below if you want a part 2. Mandy, thank you so much, genuinely, not only for coming on the show, but everything that you're doing. It's truly admirable. You're such an inspiration.
Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening as well. Really hope that you enjoyed this episode. I'm sure it's given you lots of food for thought, as it has for me. I'm definitely going to keep reflecting on a lot of these really powerful discussions. Thank you so much for tuning in. Episodes are weekly, as I mentioned before, so tune in next Wednesday and hopefully see you there.